Hey, so if you're watching this video, you're either a person who follows my channel, there ain't many of you out there, but I do appreciate you. Thanks for coming back, boo. Mwah. Or you're in the YouTube algorithm that suggests InFamous videos to you right now, just as I am. That's why I saw OverusedBruh's InFamous videos, and I'm sure you have as well. But if you haven't, here's a link to his channel, it'll be in the description. Prime new InFamous content for ya. But while he puts focus into making a sequel and an ending for the franchise, and he does it quite well, I shall say, I'm here to ramble about the shit that we've been rambling about, well, for 13 years apparently. Wait, holy shit, you serious? Dude, the first game is 13 years old? Dude, wasn't I like 13, like 5 years ago? Dude, what? So the first InFamous game. So I actually won't be touching the story that much, but I also will. You'll see what I'm saying soon. So if you're coming to this video from OverusedBruh's video where he cinematically narrates the story and the design ideas along the way, it won't really be like that. It'll be more like a crackhead that just smoked Sasha's toxin in crystal form, rambling to you about how the first game should be remade from the ground up. I'll be starting with the environment design, down to movement and combat, hell, even music, and adding lots of side missions. And that's the part I'm most excited to tell you about, you know what I'm trying to say? So yeah, if that's something you want to listen to, thank you for your time. And let's start with environment and art. So the map is pretty much already nailed down in the original. Despite what a lot of people might suggest, I don't want to make the map bigger. I personally feel that would be a really bad idea, because the map is big enough as it is and Cole has no options to traverse it quickly. But I am putting in something that's not fast travel, it's kind of something different, but we'll talk about that later. All we need to do is just upgrade it to modern engines and, you know, put in some flashy graphics and stuff, of course, and add some extra details. And this could work out great. I mean, you can make that shit look gritty, okay? I'm talking like fucking... Okay, that's the shittiest fucking joke ever. You know, you can have trash pileups all over the place, you see people tearing apart cars, or robberies happening, junkies begging you for change, just people lying dead in the street. I know that's already a thing in the original, but with the new capabilities this can really be brought out. You know, maybe like a mother asking if anyone's seen her kid. You hear blaring car horns in the distance and screams and yells and people arguing, shooting. It has to feel like the city is alive but dying, and it wants to go out with a bang and not a whimper. So the important part of the environment is, of course, people. So of course we would just make more models, you know, make more unique models and more models for cars and all that. Maybe bikes. I don't think there's even bikes in the first game. So make like make some doomsday prepper drive around on a scooter or something. But the main thing is make them smart. Like when you're doing a good playthrough, when you're being a hero and you're having a fight on like the ground level, people just run around you instead of running away. Or some even try to help you fight only for them to be caught in one of your blasts. Normal people should just always run away from the fight, no matter what karma you are. Sure, if it's like a small group of enemies, like 2 normal enemies, then yeah, they can chuck some rocks or something. But make it so if shit starts going down, people bail. Some, you know, run away, some run and get into their cars if they have a working car, or if there's a police station nearby, they run to the police station to notify the cops. And if you're bad karma, then they will, you know, warn them of you. And if you're hero karma, then they will inform them of the gang that you're fighting, and then they would come help you, of course. And of course, if you're bad, if you're infamous karma, if you're evil karma, they should just always run away, unless, you know, there's like a rare chance that some civilian that feels like dying a hero pulls a 9 on you, starts shooting you. You know, by the way, yeah, I do want some civilians to be packing guns as well. I mean, it just makes sense. It's a lawless city. You know, Zeke gets a gun right at the start of the game. You go help him get it. So the design of the civilians and gangs and cops is really well done in the original. You know, you see people they're wrapped up, you know, they're all in bandages. They have, you know, eye patches. I mean, not like eye patches, you know, they have padded eyes, they have padded heads. They people look injured. People actually look messed up, right? Cops especially, cops, you know, really have that rough look. I really like it. It kind of makes them look really badass. But again, there's always more to add, you know, make an NPC that lost an arm or a leg, and then they have a wooden one. Maybe some asswipe that went to Empire City for a business meeting, and right when the blast happened, you know, it all went to shit, and now he's waddling through the streets like a moron in his suit. Or, you know, as I said before, crazy doomsday preppers with their camo outfits and, you know, acting like they know everything. You know, some unique characters to meet on the ground floor of the city. This is, of course, all superficial details. You know, like I said, I'm rambling. But, you know, just go look at footage of people after a serious disaster. You know, just a mess all over the place. People are depressed and angry and just ready to go off at any point, right? So now for the karma part of the city and the art. As you'll notice, there isn't a section in this video specifically dedicated to karma. That's because karma applies to all of these categories, including the environment and then, you know, everything. So each section of this video will just have a karma difference part to it. So the city will change through the course of the game, obviously, and how that depends on you, again, obviously. So the better you are, the more heroic you are, the cleaner the streets look, there's less trash pileups, and maybe buildings that were once ruined and abandoned are now given sort of improvised supports and renovations, so it becomes a shelter for the needy or some sort of community center. There's groups of people organizing in parks and city centers to cheer for coal or for a police rally. Of course, you know, then police presence would also be increased. The police would sort of turn into their own gang, like, you know, the rebels in InFamous 2, you know, they sort of become that rebel force against the gangs. And the map itself should just look brighter, the colors should be more vibrant, and, you know, the sun should slowly begin to peek behind the gray clouds, and, you know, you could see a nice icy blue sky. And of course, if you go infamous, if you're evil, then things are a bit different. You know, there's I would say there's significantly less people overall on the streets, because most of them are just cowering in buildings at this point, only willing to come out when it's absolutely necessary. More buildings are ruined and some are just completely erased. We'll get to that later. There's piles of bodies being burned, you know, because the death toll is just so big that they are just being burned in the middle of the street. And yeah, by the way, that's really brutal, but I actually want this game to be more gory than the original. I know the original doesn't even have blood in it, but if you ask me, it would totally work, because, you know, the game itself just has this more brutal vibe to it already. But that sort of thing is up for discussion, but I'll get more into it later. And of course, if you're evil, all the police stations are all burning. The little people that you see on the street are shooting each other for a piece of food. Everyone has stooped down to your level, you know. Everybody just said it's fight to survive, kill or be killed. You know, like activating the riot cheat in San Andreas. The city is a burning, sick pile of ash, with black clouds and a deep red sky, still fresh from when Cole popped the ray sphere again, and it became so powerful that the sky is basically his to command, ready to send down that black lightning. So yeah, simply put, just make the original map, revamp it up to modern standards, and make it so that it evolves through the story even more, depending on your choices. Now for the art part of this segment. So obviously we gotta keep the comic cutscenes. I mean, the biggest inspiration for this game were comics, that being DMZ and Batman No Man's Land, so the cutscenes gotta stay. I like the style of the first game the best, comparing all the games, but there's a lot of room to experiment here, so not much to say about that other than don't try anything too extravagant, you know, don't try something really out of the box just so it's out of the box. Just keep it simple, keep it clean, make the classic comic style cutscenes with the simple animations, and put in some better in-game cutscenes rather than just, characters standing and talking and doing subtle hand animations, obviously. But Sucker Punch already did this in Infamous 2 and Second Son and all the other games, so this doesn't need explaining, I feel like. And I also want to use this art portion to talk about character design. Cole, fucker looks good, fits well into the game already. But he barely changes for the good playthrough. I mean, he just sort of becomes he's just like brighter. I definitely like to amp that change up a bit. He could have like a white bike jacket with the lines staying black. That would look slick as hell. That's kind of like what it looks like at the start of Infamous 2 if you continue from your good playthrough. It's kind of more white, but in the original game it's still yellow. And then the line design on the pants would of course become white as well. Maybe he even like rolls up his sleeves. But that's already reaching far out, I'd say. But the evil Cole in the original game looks really good to me personally. But I kind of want to change those, black sort of dirty corruption lines or whatever they are. I much more prefer the veins that he has in Infamous 2. But in this game, he doesn't really show that much skin. But I do definitely want to keep that dark look with the pale gray skin. Make him like dirty from the tar. And in the original game, you can kind of see that the sleeves of his jacket for the evil playthrough are kind of darker. I'm not sure if that's like just, some dirty stuff or that's just the design on his jacket changing. But in the newer version, I'd like those sleeves to be like soaked in blood so that it really looks, like I said, a gorier game. And it would really bring the point home about his cruelty. He beats people into a pulp despite being able to just kill them quickly with a bolt. And of course, put in some skins. I mean, you gotta make that Dala Dala, and have the skins change with the karma as well, otherwise they're kind of dumb. Alright, more characters. Zeke honestly looks janky as fuck in this original game. He looks so much better in Infamous 2. So just sort of take the model of Zeke from the second game and dress him up like the first game. Easy. Trish looks okay.
What did he say?
The character design on any character just did not age well, I'm afraid, but I wouldn't really propose any major design changes. Just bring the characters up to standard. I don't know. This section is taking so long already, I better just keep moving. Traversal has to be the best part of an Infamous game, I'd say, or at least on par with the combat. So the biggest problem is, do I want to somehow cheat the wire ride and wire grind or whatever you call it and the thrusters earlier into the game? Because once you get those powers, starting another playthrough and not having them feels like so tiring. They free up opportunities to traverse so massively, and it's one of the biggest conflicts for me. But my idea is make it so the player gets the wire ride and the thrusters in the same substation, and then replace the thruster substation with one where the player gets the karma specific power. You'll see my reasoning for this drastic change later, but I would love to hear any other suggestions. Now the parkour looks fantastic. A lot of people shit on it for some reason, but I think that this is one of the best parkour or free running sort of climbing systems in any game ever. The only reason why it's so unique is because Cole is super strong, he has super strength, so only he can climb the way he climbs. He can just jump on a story up from a hanging position, and I think that's good. I think that emphasizes the fact that he was a free runner, a parkour artist before this, and now that he has these powers, he's using them to the full extent in the parkour sense. It already looked fantastic in the original game, and if they just, amped up the animations, make them look slicker, it would look astounding. But I'd just like to add some extra tricks to Cole's arsenal, maybe a backflip, or sometimes maybe some sort of grab, or a really cool dolphin dive flip, like this one. So they could sort of introduce a system similar to how it is in Spider-Man Miles Morales, where there's a whole trick button and then you can combine what tricks do you do with the directional stick. You'll see more suggestions from that game later on. Or Cole could just do random tricks depending on what height he's jumping from. So, you know, it's a longer trick if he's higher, it's a smaller trick if it's he's lower. So the biggest complaint for the parkour in the first game is that traveling vertically is quite the issue, and this can of course be simply remedied by adding those booster rod thingies that are in InFamous 2, but I think Cole could also gradually unlock some sort of charge jump. So basically holding a combination of a button and a jump button, Cole begins to charge his jump, and when you let go, Cole expels some energy and is launched high enough to grab the roof edge of a 2-story building. There can also be some sort of air pulse like in the Spider-Man Miles Morales game where he gets an extra height boost, but only one per air time for Cole. And he can also execute the charge jump from a wire, sending him further and of no cost to his energy bar, since he just pulls it from the wire. Also, one of my favorite things is the destructible obstacles on rooftops, such as radio towers and cranes that Cole can zap to aid his escapades on the rooftops. But currently they're designed to only bend one certain way, at least through my observations, and many a time it's happened that I thought it would fall on a different side than I'd wanted, and then I had to just, glide over and then climb the building. What I propose is that Cole can pick which leg of the support for the tower, because there's usually 3 or 4 sometimes, which he can zap, so you can give him a choice which one he's gonna break, and then the tower can lean and fall in that specific direction in which leg, depending on which leg was destroyed, right? And yes, I'm saying you can also zap so the tower falls onto the roof that you're standing on right now. And you can sort of use that as an environmental weapon, hoping it crashes onto the Reaper that's been shooting you from this fucking rooftop for like 3 minutes. And you now specifically climbed up just so you did that to him. Fuck that guy. Okay, so now for my bullshit fast travel proposition, right? What I'm saying is there could be some sort of special tower or some sort of contraption that Zeke makes, and it would be on one building on each island. And this contraption would only be accessible after that part of the island has been cleared, aka you did a side mission so that the fast travel would be unlocked. Cole would be able to use this contraption to launch himself to a different island or to any point on that island that he's currently on, or to an edge of a neighboring island. So that sort of replaces fast travel, because at least, I don't know, you kind of have to do something for it, I feel like, because if you really want fast travel, then maybe work for it a little bit. And I kind of ripped this off from the Spider-Man 3 game, where the Spidey could just slingshot himself across New York. Kind of stole that, not gonna lie. But to be completely honest, if we just, implement more parkour tricks and more maneuvering methods like, the boost jump and the booster rod things on the side of the building so we get more vertical play, then, same as the Spider-Man game, people didn't use fast travel in that game even though it was available because it was just so fun to swing through New York. So I feel like it's easy to just make InFamous also make it so fun to just parkour through the city, right? Okay, so up next is combat. Okay, so shit might get a little crazy here. Now I do have some propositions for expanding Cole's skill set. So yeah, just hear me out. So the bolt that he has in this game, the classic first, the first bolt, the classic R1, we should just keep that. Honestly, I never cared for any other bolt in the second game. I just either switch it, from the Alpha or to the Magnum, because the Magnum is also sort of similar to the one in the first game. But the other ones I didn't really care for them. But if you do want, let me know. Or if you have ideas for any different bolts, I'd love to hear it. Okay, so let's start with the blast, right? The X. So I'd keep it the same for the good karma. Enemies float after you've blasted them. And I'd actually add another upgrade so that if you hit a floating enemy with a bolt or two, they're instantly subdued. Kind of like Delson can do it in his neon bubble. But if there's more people caught in the blast, Cole would still have to shoot each one separately, you know, because in the good version of Delson, if they're all in the bubble, you just shoot one and they're all subdued. Here I'd make it so you have to shoot them separately. And then the evil blast would overcharge anything that Cole blasts, you know, people too, not just cars, anything, just any prop, any person. And if he blasted back a grenade or a rocket, it would make it even more explosive, you know, or I don't know, even more explosive, even more damaging. I don't know what. Now for the grenades, the idea I had for the good grenade was a sort of a magnet grenade. So basically the enemies caught in the radius, yes, enemies only, would be swiftly pulled into the center where the grenade popped. Kind of like that gadget in Spider-Man. And it would deal some damage, of course, but not that much. I imagine Cole with this power, you know, running on a rooftop and then seeing Reapers harass a civilian on the street, only for him to pop the grenade, and then the civvies are free to run away, and then while the Reapers are stuck in place for a few seconds, and then he just thunder drops on them. The evil grenades, I'd honestly just keep the same, you know, it's just like a lot of grenades all around, makes sense, you know, evil, more powerful, I don't know. Onto the rockets, I'd keep pretty much the same rockets. I just love the redirect mechanic for the good rocket. So fun. I just maybe add the feature that, you know, same as for the blast, if they're floating after the rocket, they can be instantly subdued, but I don't know, maybe that's just overdoing it. So for the evil rocket, I had this idea where you could hold triangle, you know, so Cole can just keep charging the rocket, increasing its damage for up to like 5 points of energy, and this would take a considerable amount of time. But if Cole is ever interrupted during this charge, the energy points are spent and the rocket just goes wherever you were aiming at the time. I just imagine like in, you know, the show The Boys and such other superhero media, where the superhero, or, you know, hero in quotation marks, wants to help by throwing this big move at a guy only for him to accidentally misfire into a crowd of innocents. Not that Cole gives a shit, you know, the evil Cole, but it just really drives home the point that Cole could actually blast a bunch of innocent people with a charged up rocket because he got nudged by a grenade a bit, and him just shrugging it off and continuing. For the precision shot, of course, on good karma, headshot is insta subdue. I don't know what else to think of. You know, if you have any ideas, let me know. And for evil Cole, and this is a bit of a stretch, I'm not gonna lie, but I'd like if a precision headshot on evil karma to turn the enemy into a runner. That's those guys that light up flares and run at ya, and because of YouTube, I don't want to call them anything else. And Cole would only be able to do this like on a cooldown every minute or maybe minute and a half or so, or if he performs a drain, then that cooldown maybe resets or just lowers. I know that's far reaching, but I just wanted something interesting, you know, maybe like because of our brain has electric activity and Cole can sort of read minds, and then maybe he can sort of reprogram or hypnotize, or I don't know, whatever. I really want to know what you think about this one. And I especially, okay, this is the cream of the crop of this video right now, what I'm about to pitch to you right now. Gigawatt Blaze. And no, not the ones that are in the game right now. I want to majorly rework those bad boys. First of all, they'd be actual metal blades with some fancy thingamajig on them that Zeke whips up because of a side mission. Get into that later. I know that I say that a lot, you know, get into that later. But there's a lot to say, so calm the fuck down. So Cole would actually just have dual knives. This is just because I never liked the idea of a lightning blade and shit. It just doesn't work in my book. I know it's fiction, but I just still really don't like it. But listen, once Cole gets the knives, no matter what karma you are, they can do the one neutral thing and then the rest changes. The neutral thing is that the blades act sort of like the lightning tether in the second game, but the reach would be much smaller to make them less kind of OP. So any wall in range Cole points to and presses the button for the blades, Cole will throw one blade with a chain of lightning following it, and then when it connects, Cole would pull himself towards the point where the blade got stuck in the wall, and then be able to use the blade in the wall as a gripping point, sort of like putting a piston in the wall when you're climbing. And then as soon as Cole jumps or does anything else, he'd take the blade back and that gripping point in the wall would be gone. Cole can also throw a blade onto the ground but can't pull himself to it, and you'll see why he can throw it on the ground soon. and if he walks too far away from it, he'll call it back, you know, like Mjolnir or Kratos' axe. You know, calling back shit makes you feel good, admit it. And of course, Cole will get some slick melee animations, and maybe even finishers. I don't know, didn't think that far to be honest. Now for the karma part of the blades. Good Cole can use the blades to pull an enemy to him or himself to the enemy. Depends on the enemy. Like for instance, he can do both to a normal dude, but the shield guy just gets his shield pried off of him, you know what I mean? The conduits only get pulled a bit and stunned for a little while, except the Reaper conduit, who can usually just teleport, dodge a blade, unless he's charging his ground attack, in which case you can get him with a thrown blade, adding a sort of risk-reward scenario. Cole can also throw the blade on the ground next to hurt civilians, sending a pulse into it that heals anyone nearby instantly or subduing them if they're a baddie. Now the evil karma, Cole can't pull people with the blades or pull himself with the blades except onto the walls for climbing, of course. But whenever this evil Cole would go to drain a person on the floor, instead of having to tap the square prompt, Cole would just instantly, you know, stab a person in the stomach so they can't fight back, and it would leave them defenseless to the hand coming to their face, making the drain faster but still not instant. And if Cole does a whole melee finisher on a person, you know, taking them from full health to knocked out with only melee, the last melee animation would end with Cole digging the knives into the head of the victim and then just draining them instantly. And when Edgy Cole throws a knife onto the floor, he can create an explosion at its exact location, or if he threw it into a person, cause the person to explode. And when Cole gets the thunderstorm power at the end, then the explosion is replaced with the thunder in the exact location, as long as the knife is there. This would be extremely handy for bigger enemies, since you can just stick them with the blade and then call the storm down exactly on them. The looks of the blades change too, of course, with the good blades being like a shiny slick silver, while the evil ones get serrated and, you know, sort of rusted black and brown. So I understand that a lot of you might think that this completely then undermines the introduction of the amp in the second game. I get that, but if I ever end up making a video for InFamous 2 as well, I'm gonna do lots of things to the amp as well, baby. Don't you worry about that. So yeah, I got some heavy concepts here. I'm gonna need your input here, baby. Also make the boss battles harder, I guess. Like, I just played through the game again and I don't think I ever got hit by a boss. But maybe that's just because I already got the patterns down so well, because I beat this game I don't know how many times. I can't tell at this point anymore. The story. Now the story of InFamous, I wouldn't change much, I'd just add on to it. So obviously the biggest thing these games have going for them is the karma system and making choices. But the game doesn't exactly work like other multiple choice games. For instance, I played InFamous after I've already played The Telltale's The Walking Dead, and that game had much more variety of choices and how each individual character would react to your actions. For instance, you could have sided with a character throughout the majority of the game, but when they started making questionable decisions, you could betray them, and they'd be shocked and mention that you had their back all this time, yada yada yada, you know. I know these games are obviously completely different. I mean, The Walking Dead was literally designed to only just have branching, you know, conversations, and there's very little gameplay. That's besides the point right now. So, on my first playthrough of InFamous 1, I did the good karma story. I did everything good that could be done, right up to that point. Up until the point where I had to choose to either save Trish or the 5 doctors. And I remember, like, this was 2011, like I was 10 years old. And in that moment I remember thinking to myself, well shit, I've done the best I can up to this point. My karma meter is already maxed to hero. I don't care if she hates me for saving her. At least she's alive, and I'm probably gonna get the good ending. Very selfish, I know, but dude, this is supposedly the love of my life here, at least the love of Cole's life. But no, there is no way to actually save Trish. Either way you choose, Kessler puts her on the other building, and all that changes is her final words to you. Speaking of the cutscenes, only 3 of the comic cutscenes change depending on your karma, and the after credits scene, of course. Now, I'm not saying InFamous has gotta go the whole branching storyline with 30 different endings. No, absolutely not. It would not work. What I'm suggesting is you make 2 separate stories, and you make the dialogue and the circumstances of how things come to light a bit different. And we just sort of force the player to basically pick the story that they'll play at the start, because let's be honest, who has ever in the middle of a playthrough of InFamous gone like, alright, this sucks, I'm about to grind for hours just so my karma level resets and I reach the opposite end, instead of just finishing this playthrough and then playing the other side later. Like, this game practically forces us to pick a side at the start and stick with it. Staying neutral is an option, sorta. You can either be just a bit bad or just a bit good, but that just means you won't get to unlock any powers because your karma level isn't high enough for any of them. So either we completely remake how the story is told, or we completely remake how powers are acquired. So that's just too complicated. So let's lean into that. Just force a person to pick what they're gonna do at the start of the game, which side they will choose, and then they can play through the game twice, once being good and once being bad, like we always did it. So yeah, let's lean into that. Sure, have a similar story with the same twists and changes, of course, but how those changes get there can be different. So for instance, Trish's death with good karma is perfect as it is in the game. Cole makes an impossible choice that true will hurt him greatly, but in the end will help many more people. It is a total selfless act. Trish tells him that she's proud of him, that she loves him, and of course, they kind of got back together after that bus mission. But in the bad karma, after the bus mission, Trish basically tells him to fuck off and leave her alone, of course. But evil Cole still decides to save her, right? And in this version that I propose, Trish would actually be there on that roof, and he would actually save her, right? And she would actually be alive for that split second. But then you see those doctors get dropped and they die, and then Trish gets mad at Cole. She's just saving her is not good enough for her. She always wants Cole to do the greater good, and as soon as he saves her, she just goes off on him for being a selfish asshole, that he only cares about what he wants, and that she's glad that her sister is dead so she doesn't have to live in this shithole that he's made. And she's just saying the most vile shit to him, right? And her yelling, and then you see Cole and it's zooming into his face, and her yelling is slowly getting drowned out by a high-pitched tone, slowly increasing in volume. Cole's pent-up anger filling to its brim, and then he just grabs Trish by the neck and just... No one talks to Cole like that. No one. See, that's how in the good and the bad playthrough, the same conclusion can be reached. Trish dying, but with different means. And in this story that I'm proposing, the realization that Cole usually has in the after credits scene, where in the good... in the good ending he says like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do the selfless acts for the rest of my life because that's just how it is. I'm stuck with this burden of being help to these people forever, and once I won't be there for them and they'll just hate me again, right? But the evil Cole in that moment of killing Trish realizes, I don't need Trish, I don't need Zeke, I don't need Moya, I don't need to get out of this city. Because it's my city. I'm the most powerful person that probably ever existed. I can take whatever I want, whenever I want. Nobody can stop me, possibly. The only person that might be able to stop me is Kessler. I'm just gonna go fucking kill him now. And good Cole would in that moment have the drive to find Kessler and kill him out of revenge. I know that, this is the hero Cole, but like, I don't give a fuck, man. Just kill Kessler. He killed your girl, man. But the evil Cole in that moment would want to find the ray sphere just so he can activate it again. So in my story, Cole here, even though he would say to John, yeah, I want to destroy it and stuff, he would already want to activate it again, just so he's more stronger, just so he can go kill Kessler, not to avenge his girlfriend, but just because Kessler might be the only person that's powerful enough to stop Cole, and after he's killed Kessler, he has complete control of the city, right? So I know that's a change for just the one mission. I feel like it's a pretty important mission, and in that moment of killing Trish or losing Trish, that is when that final realization that in this original game Cole has at the end of the game, he would have this realization here. So either that he has to be the bigger man for the rest of his life for the good playthrough, and that he can do whatever the fuck he wants because nobody can possibly stop him, only Kessler, which he's gonna go kill now, for the bad playthrough, right? But just in general, the story can be pretty much the same as it is now. Of course, Cole just always starts as this sort of anti-hero, you know, grudgy, sort of rude guy, you know. But as you do the good playthrough, he would eventually get more compassionate and more reasonable and more calm when discussing certain topics. Only when, you know, something goes really wrong, he gets really pissed, because that's just how Cole is, you know, no matter which way you slice it, he gets pissed pretty quick. And the evil Cole would just in general be more rude and more abrasive, and it would be apparent that, you know, when he has a mission that is basically helping people or stopping something bad from happening, he's only doing it to please Moya and not actually because he wants to help people. And he would also be more manipulative towards Zeke and, you know, maybe even John, but John's like a pretty smart character, so he would sort of, you know, constantly bitch about being used by Moya or John and all that shit. And then you might be saying, but well, if you're forcing us to pick a side on which to play on, if I pick the good choice at the start, will I not be able to then drain people? No, of course you can still do things like that, but when it comes to the really big decisions, you will then be forced to do the good one, right? But if you want to drain someone in the middle of the street, you can still drain a person if you really need to. You know, like when I do good playthroughs, I drain an enemy sometimes if I'm really low on energy, because fuck those guys, I mean, let's be honest. And if you do side missions, you know, some side missions also have a karmic point, so like, oh, do I help this person and then they'll give me the shards, or do I just take them right now? Well, even if you chose the first good choice, you can still do some bad stuff on the side missions. And you know when they have like a guy hanged up on a lamppost, yeah, you can still leave him, because come on, man, like you really feel like doing that every time. But if you're doing a good playthrough and you do a bad thing, it will lower your karma significantly. Like doing 3 side missions and making the bad decision would send you down a rank, because that's how I feel it is in society. Like you can be a good person and then you do one bad thing and then your respect drops significantly. But if you're doing an evil playthrough and you do good things on the side missions, then it would only lower the evil meter just a little bit, because that's how it also is in society. If you're just an evil piece of shit most of the time, if you do one good thing, people really don't give a shit. But if you're a good guy and you do one bad thing, then your respect falls much faster. But then you might also say, well, if I'm forced to pick a good playthrough or a bad playthrough at the start of the game, then what's gonna happen to those 15 good or 15 bad side missions that are in the game right now? That's what I'm saying. You know how I said that in the Traversal section of this video, I mentioned that I want to put the wire riding and the thrusters into one substation together, so that leaves one substation open. That's the substation in which you would get then the karma specific power. So either, I think it's called the overload burst and the arc lightning, you get that there. And then you're saying, well, I liked those good and bad side missions, like that shit was cool. What's gonna happen to that? I propose that basically then every side mission turns into either a good side mission or a bad side mission, because I don't see why an evil Cole would be even helping anyone do anything. So for instance, good missions would be like helping police somehow, in various ways, helping people in various ways. And then evil missions would be like destroying police stations, destroying, like really brutally destroying, you know, protesters, brutally destroying gang hideouts, destroying buildings. So that's why I said, you know, in the environment part, that some buildings will be completely destroyed. Like, for instance, if there's a hideout, if people are planning something against you, you know, or something, you find something like that out, you just completely, you overload the gas or whatever in the building, just completely destroy it so that the map eventually becomes more desolate. So when you're doing 100% run on the evil playthrough, a lot of the buildings are just gone, erased from the map, right? And then, I mean, I guess a lot of people want the Sasha evil side missions, and I'm like so split on that because at the same time they're so cool, right? Sasha a baddie, right? I need the toxicity or whatever. Yeah, but at the same time I feel like even the evil Cole would still hate her. Cause like she's kind of a bitch. I mean, let's be honest. She's just rude and she tries to kill him. But then all of a sudden, when you start doing side missions, she's all sweet with him. Like, dude tried to kill her. Dude tried to torture her into talking, man. I don't get it. I don't know. Tell me what you think. So to put it short, you would get the side mission power depending on your karma in a substation that's now opened up. And most side missions will shift so that they're either good or bad, or they're in the middle still, and they have the choice in them, right? Also, I have some ideas for more lore-based side missions that we'll talk about later. Also, another tiny idea is, the rooftop safe house that Zeke sometimes during missions hangs out on. I would like that safe house to be actually more active. Like, sometimes during free roam, you can just jump on that roof during the day, and Zeke is there, and they can like talk. Sometimes Cole and Zeke can talk about what Cole has done that day. Maybe if he did like a good side mission, he'd say something good. If he did a bad side mission, he'd say he did something weird. And then, Zeke would either be like, hey, you're helping people, or he'd be like, damn, people are afraid of you, dog. And if you're good karma, maybe after you get back with Trish, maybe Trish stops by sometimes or something. Because, they get eventually back together for the good part. So yeah, but that's just a small idea. Alright, I'm also gonna love this part of the video because the side missions, the original side missions, they're not exactly my favorite part. Not that they're absolutely horrible, but they're kind of mostly just copy-pasted all around the map. Like every island has the counter-surveillance mission, the hostage mission. It almost feels like they were made in the UGC editor from InFamous 2 and have just been strewn along the map. I would really like to see some missions that have actual lore substance given to you by characters you actually know. Zeke has connections all over town, he knows plenty of people who need help. Trish can have some good karma missions, of course. The Warden Harms is such a weird character, like he just calls me and he knows me from before maybe, like that Cole delivers shit to the penitentiary or something, I don't know. Moya could have some extra side missions revealing more about how the government is going about this whole situation. Maybe reference the comic a little bit, cause that shit's fire. But the idea that we want the story characters in some side missions already draws up a big problem. Because at the end of InFamous 1, Cole is basically estranged with every other character. Either the character is dead, or he is not on speaking terms with the character. So like Trish and John are dead, and Moya and Zeke are basically that they aren't friends anymore, they aren't partners anymore, they don't like each other anymore. So this would be kind of tough to fix. Either we do a rewind like they do in InFamous 2, but we'd have to rewind like to the start of the last chapter, or even further back than that, because I feel the first person that he gets estranged with is Moya after John contacts him, and that's like way before you even defeat Alden, so that's like way back in the game. So I don't know, should there be a, when you're first playing through the game, should there be some sort of warning before you start that mission, like, oh, after this mission, side missions will become unavailable, and then, at the end of the game we'll rewind and then you can do them again or something. I don't know, that's like a bit tough, but I really would like to see some missions that then add some lore to Zeke, add some lore to Moya, add some lore to Trish especially. Like, Trish is such a throwaway character, it's so terrible. I don't know, man. And maybe some side missions with John, then, maybe mention a little bit that there's also stuff happening in New Marais, maybe? But now I'm just gonna fire off some ideas about some various side missions that could be implemented in various ways. So here's the idea. In the beginning of the game, Zeke and Cole have this conversation.
Which is why you won't be touching the new one. Traded this guy one of my homemade batteries for it.
The ones that explode when you use them?
Hell, he doesn't know that.
So I propose a side mission where the guy that was sold the lemon battery comes back with his boys to try and mess up Zeke. Cole helps him, and they somehow find out that the guy had a whole workshop going. He just needed some batteries, and you know, Zeke can use the workshop and use Cole as a battery to make him the gigawatt blades. Yeah, see, that's how you get him, man. Later on in the game, we help a guy named Brandon, whose wife sadly was killed by the Reapers. And if he didn't zap him, you can maybe meet him later for another side mission. Now, this one for me was the biggest missed opportunity. Make a side mission or side missions with the voice of survival, the TV Jacker. I know he gets killed later on in the story, but more lore on him would be kind of nice to see. You know, maybe like at the end it's just revealed that he's some rich kid that just wanted to be popular and he actually doesn't know anything about anything. You know, that guy that makes those posters of you, he can be found later and he needs your help to paint a giant mural of you on the side of a building. And if you get him the stuff he needs, you can pick the graphic which, you know, he will cover the building in, good or evil. Have some side missions for Trish where you have to get her medicine or one or the other, and for good karma you go steal it from the Reapers and you know, you make it more difficult, and for evil karma you just go steal it from some other medical station and go to her playing it off as if it were from the Reapers. And this is also a pretty big idea. I think it needs more time to cook, but I'd say fuck it, you know, I'll just pitch it here right now. Another ARG like the Paper Trail. For me, it was real fun in Second Son, and something like this could work in this game as well. I imagine some sort of serial killer hunt. Maybe the guy is like a conduit bloodbender or some creepy power like that. People are going crazy for creepy ARGs these days. The idea I had in mind is that in-game, of course, you'd be Cole trying to find this guy and take him down. And then I thought we, the player, could sort of play the part of Moya doing research on her computer. But Cole and Moya, again, like I said, kind of become estranged at the end of the game. So like it wouldn't make sense if you start it after the main story. Maybe the computer part could be switched over to a different character, but I don't know. You know, that's something that we just have to then work out in the comments if anyone will even fucking watch this video. But yeah, just my quick pitch for an ARG. And a bunch of other side missions. Yeah. Alright, the music. Last part of the video and also the quickest. Music in video games is really important to me, and InFamous has some bangers, mainly the credits song, but also some nice tracks from Amon Tobin, who is an amazing artist. What I love in video games is dynamic music, meaning that the tone and intensity of a track changes depending on what's happening. So when you're just parkouring through the city, you're getting some smooth beats, and when you're in a huge firefight, it's just blasts and bass of aggressive drums. They kinda already had this in the first InFamous game, but not really, I don't know. My idea is that we make each island sorta have its own dynamic soundtrack, each corresponding to the gang that occupies the island. So the Reapers sorta got that gangster vibe with the hoodies, and it's mentioned that they were mostly criminals before the outbreak already. So giving that track some hip hop drums and sweet bass lines, and samples from old songs like the Masters used to do, you know. For the Dustman, the original track already pretty much nails it. Fun fact, for the soundtrack of this game, they literally like played on trash. There's a video that I'll link. But yeah, basically they picked up everyday objects, went to a scrapyard to record stuff, so absolutely perfect for the war. The historic district, home of the First Sons, I'd say could have a sort of mix of orchestral and electronic, because the First Sons are an old, classy organization, but they're also decades ahead of scientific research, so combining those two elements into their track would totally fit, I think. And of course some extra tracks for missions and such, though just remaster some of the original ones because they're really good. And also, if you really need Sucker Punch, I could do like a cover of a Nirvana song if you really need it for the credit. Through the many times I've played this game, over the many years, while it stayed the same and the world around it changed, I always said to myself that this game is just... it simply came out too soon. The technology to make it reach its full potential just wasn't there at the time. even though it was, you know, advertising the new capabilities of the PS3. And back then, the mainstream public didn't really fancy these gritty superhero stories. They wanted the more flashy, witty, action-packed blockbusters. Not that I'm saying those are bad, I mean there's a reason why that was preferred. But armed with the modern gear and technology and more people jumping on TV shows like The Boys and Invincible, people are starting to see that a world with a superhero isn't always so nice, so cut and dry heroic. That being a hero is an astounding responsibility, and not everyone, if given that power, would choose to be responsible. Some would just gladly reap the benefits and let the rest of the world go to shit. But the time has finally come. The world is ready. Whatever, get the fuck out of here. I can stop whenever I want. So to be completely honest, this video could have just totally been like a much shorter, much more concise Reddit post on the InFamous subreddit or something. I don't know. And the footage is just completely a mess. This video is probably much more easier to just listen to than to watch. I probably should have mentioned that at the start of the video, but hey, whatever. Even though I said all these nice ideas and, you know, all these concepts in this video, I very highly doubt, in fact I'm just fairly certain that we will not be getting any InFamous content whatsoever anytime soon, if even ever. So yeah, this isn't me like begging Sucker Punch to make something, because I'm pretty sure they just won't. They just won't make anything InFamous ever again, maybe. But hey, it's nice to dream. And you know, if anyone ever wants to make like some sort of game that's inspired by InFamous, you know, in dreams or whatever, I've seen that before. Go ahead, do it, and steal anything you want from this. Even if you want to make any completely different game, just steal these ideas. I don't care. But anyways, yeah, if you want, please, this is a discussion. This isn't just my video. This should be a discussion. Please let me know what you want to see, what you want to see changed, improved, something new added to the game. What's your vision of it, right? I want to see that as well. So yeah, feel free to discuss. Feel free to tell me that it's shit, that it's cringe, because it is. And yeah, let me know if you want me to make this for InFamous 2 and Second Son or anything else. So yeah, I gotta smoke some more of this shit, man. Honestly, this is pretty. I'm down bad. I ain't gonna lie.